And before we start, I'd like to give a small introduction. Leading international motivational speaker, and today will share his insights into achieving exceptional leadership success. Addresses more than 250,000 people each year and has addressed more than 5 million people in 5,000 talks all around the world. Studied, written, and spoken for over 30 years in the fields of economics, business, and psychology. And he's also the top-selling author of over 45 books. He speaks around the world on the subjects of personal and professional development, including the executives of many of the world's largest corporations, and his exciting talks and seminars on leadership, goals, creativity, and success bring about immediate changes and long-term results. Ladies and gentlemen, I will leave you with Brian Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please sit down. It's a delight to be back here in Dubai. This is an incredible city. Every time I come here, I look around and it's just amazing. I go and brag about Dubai all over the world. You talk about, look at the great cities of the world, Europe and America. They're like old, tired cities compared to the dynamism of this city. I'm going to sit down during my talk, which I've never done in my career, although I know many young speakers who are perfectly healthy who sit down. And the reason is because I had a spinal injury. I actually slipped a disc last May. I lifted my hand up over my head, and my disc slipped and slammed into the spine, and you lose all sensation in the rest of your body. Fortunately, I can walk. Some people can never walk again. I call it gimp. I can gimp around a little bit, but my legs get tired. So please bear with me if I sit while we talk. Now, we have only 90 minutes together. I could spend days and days with you, but so I want to make this time very valuable. We're living in the greatest age in all of the history of Dubai. This is the Switzerland of the Middle East, and it's going to become even more successful in the months and years ahead. And there's a phenomenon called the goldfish phenomena, and what it basically says is that the goldfish is not aware that it's in water because it's so surrounded by water, it's part of its environment. And sometimes you can be in a place like this that is so dynamic and it offers so many opportunities for financial success and not even be aware of it. You compare it with your day-to-day activities and your local competition and so on, but the rest of the world out there is really struggling, and what we have here is really good. And so my goal is to give you some tools that you can use. I've worked with more than 10,000 small and medium-sized businesses and more than 1,000 large corporations in 63 countries. And so I've had a chance to study basically what you might call their success models. Is how do they succeed? What are the things that they do differently from companies that don't succeed? And the good news is that all of the answers have been found. And sometimes changing one thing that you are doing will transform your business. One thing that you're doing or that you're not doing that others have found that works will transform your business. I was reading something from Richard Branson recently, and remember Richard Branson, the entrepreneur with Virgin Airlines and Virgin Music and so on. Well, he has started and built 85 businesses, and he's become one of the richest men in the world. And he started off, he's dyslexic, so he's not very good at writing in words. He started off with a magazine when he was 16 years old, and he published the magazine out of his parents' house. But he wasn't very good at writing, so he found that the key was to delegate the writing to someone else while he sold the advertising, because he had a good personality. He's now built 85 businesses, and very successfully. So somebody asked him, how is it that most people struggle to make one business successful, and you have started and built 85 successful businesses? Why does this happen? He said, well, you must understand that all successful business is based on certain principles. If you follow the principles, then the business will be successful. And if you don't, you don't. It's like a recipe. If you follow the recipe, the dish will taste delicious. And if you don't follow the recipe, or you even leave out one key ingredient, it won't taste good. And so once you have started one successful business, you can do it over and over again because the principles remain the same. And most of us, and I did for many years, struggle with one business, try to make one business successful, and then we find that we're just missing an ingredient. We're missing this or we're missing that. We have an MBA program, we call it the 2-day MBA, where we take 10 critical parts of successful businesses, the same parts that Branson talks about, and we teach them in sequence. And they're sort of like the ingredients to a recipe or a formula. And when you call something a scientific formula, there's a word in science, and it's called replicability. In other words, it can replicate. Something is scientific if it may take genius, it may take weeks, months, years for an Einstein to come up with a formula, but after the formula has been developed, an average person can replicate it over and over again and get the same results as the genius. Well, it's the same thing in business. If you do the same things that successful businesses do, you soon get the same results that they do. And if you don't, you don't. And what I learned, which was really shocking to me, was that nature is neutral. Nature doesn't care. Nature is sort of like justice, you know, holding up the scales. Nature doesn't say, you'll be successful, and you not so much, and you more, and you less. Nature doesn't care. Nature is completely neutral. Nature just simply says, based on the law of cause and effect, if you institute the causes of success, you get success. And if you don't, you don't. And nobody cares, which was really offensive to me when I first heard about it. You mean nobody cares? No, the only person that cares is you. And wonderfully enough, all business skills are learnable. Every business skill that you need is a learnable skill. You have the ability to learn anything that you need to learn to be more successful in your field. Many of us have this idea that, well, I'm not very good at that, and I've never been good at this, and I don't know very much about that. Shut up! The fact is, it's learnable. If you can drive a car, if you can use a modern cell phone, if you can ride a bicycle, you can learn any business skill. Oops. Sorry about that. I'm not going to do me much good anymore. Thank you. I won't wave my arms. Thank you very much. I think I'll put it over here. And so the critical thing is to find out what skills you need. And we'll talk about that. Actually, what I'd like to do is I'd like to do a little exercise, which we do all the time. It's one of the most important exercises that I ever discovered. And it is this. Imagine that you have a magic wand. I use this as a magic wand. And somebody actually came up and gave me a magic wand that they had gotten in Europe. And they said, you should manufacture these and sell them at your seminars so that everybody could have a magic wand. And a magic wand is a way of thinking. In magic wand thinking, you imagine you could wave a magic wand and you could have your situation any way you wanted. And when you do that, you'll find the number one reason why we don't move ahead is because we have fears and doubts, we have limitations, we don't have enough money, I didn't get enough education, I don't know enough people, the competition is too hard, it's too hot outside, blah, 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 okay? And so when you wave a magic wand, you say, imagine that you have no limitations, and you could wave a magic wand, and you could have anything that you wanted in life. So one of the things we do when we do strategic planning with corporations, and I suggest that you do this, we say, imagine you could wave a magic wand and create what is called a 5-year fantasy. You could project forward 5 years, and 5 years from now, your life would be perfect in every way. If your life was perfect in every way 5 years from now, how would it be different from today? And one of the things that we teach in more extended courses is the 4 areas. First of all, your business, your career, your income. Second of all, your family and relationships. Third of all, your health. And fourth of all, your financial condition overall. How much do you have accumulated? How much do you have coming in monthly from your investments? Those are the 4 critical areas of life. And about 99% of your happiness or unhappiness will be because of success or failure in one of those 4 areas. But let's just talk about business. And what I'll do when I do strategic planning for a corporation, and these are top executives in billion-dollar corporations, I'll say, let's sort of be like children. Let's fantasize and project forward 5 years and create a fantasy. And imagine that the leading business publication in your city was going to do a story on your company in 5 years. And they were going to go out and investigate and research and talk to customers and competitors and clients and people internally. And they're going to find that your company is incredible. And they're going to write a story about your company and talk about all the wonderful things about your company. The question is, what would you like them to say? What would you like them to say in this article? And would you like them to say, and people come up with the same, great products, fabulous people, wonderful leadership, high levels of profitability, tremendous market growth, great place to work, we can attract the best people, fabulous customer service, wonderful technology. In other words, they start to just play like children with this idea. If my company was perfect, this is what they would say about my company. And I cannot tell you how important this is, because there's a rule that says that whatever you see, you will be. And if you have a clear picture of what you would like your future company to look like, and then you come back to the present and you say, all right, if that's where I want to be in 5 years, what would I have to do starting today to begin to create that perfect company? What would be the first step? And here's the most amazing thing, is you can always see the first step. You'd always know that you should start doing more of this, or start doing less of that, or start doing something new, or stop doing something that you're already doing. But you can always see the first step. And the most wonderful thing is that when you take the first step, is you get 3 benefits. The first benefit is that you get feedback, which enables you to self-correct. And all of life is a process of experimenting and feedback and changing and correcting. That's all of life. Second of all is you get ideas. There's something about acting that actually triggers your creativity. It makes you smarter. It activates more of your brain. Sitting there passively doesn't do anything, but taking action actually sort of lights up your brain like a Christmas tree, or whatever we use. And the third factor is that taking action gives you confidence. Your self-confidence goes up. Is the more actions you take in the direction of your goals, the more confidence you have, the more creative you are, the more energy you have, the happier you are. You feel like you're in control of your life. You feel powerful. And that is why the difference, the 80-20 rule that we've talked about, the top 20% of people in every society and business are proactive. They're constantly taking action. The bottom 80% are passive, is they're waiting for someone else to come and tell them what to do. And so since you are highly proactive, you're obviously in the top, probably the top 10% of your field. And the people in the top 10% are the ones who enjoy all the rewards. They're the ones that make all the money. They're the ones that make all the progress. Maybe not in the short term, but in the long term. You know, we're talking on the radio today is that the average self-made millionaire has been bankrupt or nearly bankrupt 2.3 times before they broke through. And they finally hit it. And they made countless mistakes. They failed over and over again. They fell on their face and fell on their face. But because they knew where they were going, when they fell on their face and picked themselves up, they were a little bit closer to their goal. Each time you fall down, you pick yourself up. So be very clear about this fantasy and then take the first step. And you always know what the first step is. The first step, I was in China last week, believe it or not, and in China they have this saying, a journey of 1,000 leagues begins with a single step. Well, the first step is always the hardest. To do something new, to start something new, to move out of your comfort zone, the first step is always the hardest. But it's very much like skiing. If you know, in here we ski here. Unbelievable what you can do with $1 trillion. But in skiing, you have to work very hard to get yourself up to the top of the slope, and then you push off, and then the natural momentum starts to carry you, and you go faster and faster down the slope. Well, taking the first step is the same as pushing off. Once you take the first step, you kind of break the inertia that's holding you back, and you start to move faster towards your goal. Now, when you take the first step, the most wonderful thing is you can then see the second step, and then you can see the third step, and you can always see one step ahead. And the difference between winners and losers in business and in life is winners take the first step. Everybody wants to be rich and successful and happy and healthy and have a great family relationship and live forever. People say, oh, these are my goals, as if you're unique. Everybody's got the same goals. The only question is some people take the first step, and then they take the second step, and they take the third step, and they keep getting feedback and ideas, and they fail, and they fall down, and they pick themselves up, but they're intensely action-oriented. If there's one thing about top people like yourself, is they're action-oriented. How do I know that you're action-oriented? It's because you're here. You had to go through a lot of time and trouble and inconvenience to be here today, which means that you're action-oriented people. That is the highest praise that you can say to a person. Most people, the bottom 80%, are passive. So the first question we do is wave a magic wand and say, if your business was perfect in 5 years, what would it look like? Now, Peter Drucker, the management guru, had this wonderful observation. I love Drucker. He said, we greatly overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we greatly underestimate what we can do in 5 years. And so if your job is to create a great company with absolutely excellent products and services, great reputation, good people, high sales, great profitability, wonderful place to work, and so on, it's all achievable. It's just a matter of time. All you have to do is do what other companies have done to achieve the same thing. So this brings us back, and I'm looping back again, to the other fantasy that we do. Again, it's a 5-year fantasy or even shorter, is you ask yourself, if you had a magic wand, and you could wave this magic wand, and overnight you could become excellent at any one skill in your business. You could become world-class and top maybe 1% of people in your field. If you could develop any skill within 24 hours, or take a magic pill and wake up the next morning and be absolutely excellent at any one skill, what one skill would help you the most to be more successful in your business? Now, this is one of the great questions, and it becomes a guiding question for the rest of your career. You ask other people this question, you ask your children. If you're as a consultant or an advisor, keep asking people what one skill, one capability, what they call one core competence would help you the most to achieve your business goals. In many audiences, I say, how many people here would like to double their income? And everybody raises their hand. Then I say, what one skill would help you the most to double your income? And you know that most people are only one skill away from doubling their income? They're only one skill away. And so what I have found is that almost everybody knows the answer to that question. If you don't know the answer to that question, you cannot move ahead. If you do not know the answer to that question, and you cannot focus on that question, then you're stuck in place. Because the only way that we move ahead is by getting better at the most important things that we do. If we're not getting better, as the basketball coach said, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And so if we're not continually improving in the most important areas, and if you're going to improve in the area that's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. It's going to give you the biggest impact on your financial life in business. There may be a different answer in health, there may be a different answer in sports, but in business, what would be the one skill that would help you the most? If you could be overnight absolutely excellent, or your company could be absolutely excellent in any one skill, what would it be? Now I'm going to ask you to write this down. Write down your answer to this question. Remember, you're proactive. Proactive people write things down. Passive people sit there like cattle and chew grass. All right? It's really important. Write it down. You must know the answer to this question. Now, sometimes the answer to this question makes you a little bit uncomfortable. You don't really like the answer to this question, and the reason is you're uncomfortable in this particular skill area. It's normal and natural. And why is it that you're uncomfortable with a particular skill? Can you guess? And the answer is because you're not good at it yet. You're not good at it when? You're not good at it yet. And so that's why you're uncomfortable. You say, well, if I would be far more aggressive in selling and making new customer contacts, I could really build my business faster. Of course you could. Do you know what your business success is determined by? It's determined, this is just one little observation, it's determined by the number of minutes that you spend face-to-face with prospective customers. That's the number of minutes. I call it the minutes theory, and I've taught this all over the world. If people come back to me and they say, I can't believe it was so simple to double my income. I did it in 30 days after being in my business for 13 years. I said, the average professional business person spends about 90 minutes a day in contact with customers. So I say just increase that to 180 minutes a day. You work 8 hours a day, so spend 3 hours of that in direct contact with customers. If you'll do that, you'll double your income. And people say it can't be that simple. Yes, it is, and it's based on a law. And the law is called the law of probabilities. The law of probabilities says that the more things you do in a particular area, the greater is the probability that you will do the right things and be successful. And so if you wanted to double your income, just double the amount of time you spend with people who can buy your services or your products. And that's not too complicated. And here's another great strategy, which is so simple, is what do most people do in the morning? And I'm wandering around here, but I'm going to come back. What do most people do in the morning? Most people in the morning, they turn on their computers and they check their email for a few hours. And they turn up their bell, so it goes ding, 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 and they're like, attention, deficit, disorder, children, ding, 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 answering their phone, ding, ding, ding. By the end of 2 or 3 hours, their brain is so flooded with dopamine that they're incapable of concentrating on anything. And so distraction, technological distraction today is killing you. It's destroying your hopes for your future. It's keeping you busy, and at the end of the day, you've accomplished nothing, and you're exhausted. According to a recent report, every time that you respond to a new impulse and a new distraction, it burns up part of your brain energy. At the end of a day, of a typical day today, the average person's IQ has decreased by 10 points. That means throughout a distracting day, you get stupider all day long. And by the end of the day, you're just plain stupid. You've gone from college level to basically driving a truck in terms of intelligence. And this is really serious. There's some very in-depth scientific articles on this. Some try to say it's a good thing because it stimulates your mind. The others will point out that it stimulates your mind so much that what happens, every stimulus triggers dopamine, and dopamine has the same effect as cocaine on your brain. It's a stimulus, and you get addicted to this dopamine stimulus, and you cannot not surround yourself with stimuli. You cannot not watch your computer. I mean, many people get up in the middle of the night and go and check their computer to see if there's any email, any spam. And then they go back to bed. They can't sleep, and they lay sleep. They wake at night. Anyway. My point is that if I ask my business clients this. I said, why are you in business? I mean, what's the purpose of your business? Well, it's to make sales and profits. That's why we're in business, is to make sales and profits. I say, well, if that's what your business is, then do you spend all of your time making sales and profits? Well, sort of. Do you know what the average business owner today spends only 11% of their time in marketing and sales? All the rest is distraction. And they don't even realize it until somebody follows them around with a camera and a stopwatch. The average business owner today is so distracted that they're distracted away from what they do. So I'll give you a very simple way to double your income, increase the size of your business, become eventually wealthy, live in a big house, big car, and retire to Switzerland. Here it is. Are you ready?
Yes.
It's when you start in the morning, leave things off. Don't check your computer or your iPhone or anything else. There's nothing there that's important. A friend of mine in New York wrote a book 2 years ago called Don't Check Your Email in the Morning. And then she just goes on to explain why checking your email in the morning starts the addictive process. And then you're addicted all day long. You just can't get out of it. It's like an alcoholic or a drug addict that takes a drink. They can't stop drinking. You take a shot, you can't stop. So don't turn it on. Leave it off. And the rule for success today is leave things off. Leave things off. So the reason you're in business is to generate sales and revenues, then all you do for the first 90 minutes of each day is you do revenue generation and value creation activities. That's all you do. Then you take a 15-minute break, if you like, and go and bother other people, distract them from their work. And then you start again and do another 90 minutes, and all you do is value creation and revenue generation. The reason why you're working is value creation, revenue generation. So if that's the reason why you're working, discipline yourself to do just that. Don't do anything but that for the first 3 hours. If you do this until it becomes a habit, in less than a month, you'll reach the point where it's automatic for you to get up, prepare, and put your head down and do things that increase value, create value, or generate revenues. If you'll do that, your whole business life will transform. Then you get the key people in your business to do the same thing, and if everybody is doing that, everybody's working on value creation for our customers and revenue generation, your whole business will transform overnight. You'll be absolutely amazed. Just make it a rule. We don't turn on our computers until noon. Now, the first time you do that, you're going to have a revolt, probably riots. People will go crazy because it's like taking the dope away from people who are addicted. They go into convulsions, and they will go into convulsions. But you'll have to do it yourself. You'll have to go through your own convulsions first, and then you'll have to pass it on to others. So ask yourself, what one skill would help me the most? Now, what I would like you to do is turn to the people at your table and tell them the one skill that if you were absolutely excellent at it, would have the greatest impact on your business and your income. Go ahead, turn to the people next to you. Tell them the answer to the question. All right. Now, thank you for doing that. Now, here's the good news. Whatever skill you identified, you can learn. There's nothing that can stop you from excelling in that skill. It's simply a matter of time. Some people will get better at it faster, others slower. But they've discovered in 25 years of research at the University of Florida, they've looked at people who started at the bottom and got to the top and became the heads of Fortune 500, heads of Fortune 1000 corporations. And they went all the way back to their early performance appraisals and comments by their supervisors, and they found that they had all settled on the same strategy. And the same strategy was to identify the one skill that would help them the most at this stage of their career, and then concentrate single-mindedly on learning that skill. And they were serious about this. They didn't just, read a book or an article. They made a plan, like a lesson plan, and they asked, what are the best books to read in this area? What are the best programs, audio programs to listen to? What are the best courses to attend? And they developed a course of study, and they worked for weeks and months and even a year or more to develop that skill. And once they had developed that skill, and people started to tell them, hey, you're pretty good in that area, that was their sign that they had mastered the skill. And then they would ask their boss or ask their coworkers to look at the top people around them or the most successful business people around them, and they would identify the next skill. And what we find is that all of life is like climbing a ladder, and each step on the ladder is mastering a new skill. And what the top people do, and this is one of the greatest breakthroughs in business success I've ever seen in an entire life of studying the subject, is what they do is they get better one skill at a time. They don't try to get better at 10 skills, because that just exhausts you and you see no progress and you soon quit. So what they would do is focus like a laser beam on a single skill until they had mastered it. But here's the most amazing thing. When you are focusing on the development or acquisition of a particular skill, your whole mind is in improvement mode. So what happens is you automatically start to get better at everything else without even thinking about it. You're just more conscious and aware of things that you can do to be better in other areas by focusing on a single skill. They call this, Pears Anderson, who did all this work, calls it deliberate practice. And it is the key to great success, deliberately practicing one skill at a time. Now, once you have learned this skill, which you will, only one person in the world that can stop you from mastering a skill. Who is that? It's always yourself. It's a lack of self-discipline, lack of personal management, lack of control, and so on. I don't have enough time, I'm so busy, I'm tired all the time, wah, 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 shut up, shut up. So what it takes, and they found that it takes about 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, of deliberate practice or focus on a new skill to master the skill. Once you have mastered the skill, then what do you do? Well, it's obvious, you ask the question again. Now, what one skill, if I was absolutely excellent at it, would help me the most to achieve my financial or business goals? What's the one skill? I was at a private meeting with the head of one of the biggest companies in the world, and that's terrible because the name escapes me for a second, but I had read a book that he had written 10 years before, and it was based on over 30 years of experience, and he'd run 2 Fortune 500 companies. He said what they discovered was that your weakest important skill sets the height of your income. Your weakest important skill. In every field, there's 5 to 7 vital skills. Your weakest skill in this little group of skills sets the height of your income and your success. And so often, it's one skill that's holding us back more than anything else. And when I say that, everybody knows what I'm talking about. It's the one skill. Usually in business, it's marketing or sales or a combination thereof. Sometimes it's business development, customer relationships, and so on. But we know what it is. The only question is, are we going to sit there passively, or are we going to say, damn, I'm going to learn that skill. I'm going to become very, very good at that skill, whatever it happens to be. And the wonderful thing is that once you learn a skill, another thing happens, is a nickel drops in your brain, and you realize, I can learn new skills. Damn, I can learn any skill. I could learn languages. I could learn any skill. Wow, and suddenly the dam breaks in your mind, and all the hesitation and lack of confidence and lack of certainty that you had, suddenly you realize, I can learn anything I need to learn. And it gives you a tremendous sense of power. So from then on, your whole life becomes a do-it-to-yourself project. Your whole life becomes a process of learning one skill at a time, climbing the ladder of success. Every rung on the ladder is higher income, greater influence, greater power in your profession. Getting better in your field is one of the most important things you can do. So I have a question for you, moving right along. What is the most important work that you do in your field? What is the most important and highest paid work that you do? Thinking. You've obviously been here before. And the answer is right. The answer is thinking. When I first heard this question, I wasn't clear about what the answer was. But the most important work you do is thinking well about yourself and your work. In fact, every mistake that you've ever made has been a result of poor thinking or not thinking at all. You all know what I'm talking about. Every success you've ever had has usually been the result of really good thinking prior to taking action. Now, the reason why thinking is so important is that the quality of your thinking determines the quality of your decisions. And it's an interesting observation is that you are where you are and what you are today as a result of the total of all your choices and decisions up to this moment. In every part of your life, from the time you became an adult or before, you've made choices and decisions. The cumulative result is where you are today. Your income, your health, your happiness, your business, everything else. But my great rule, which is quoted all the time, is that it doesn't matter where you're coming from. All that really matters is where you're going. And where you're going is only limited by your imagination. So what you do is you say, forget the past. In the past, I could have done things differently, but I can't change the past. But I can change the future completely by what I do now. So the quality of your thinking determines the quality of your choices and decisions. The quality of your choices and decisions determines the quality of your actions, and the quality of your actions determines the quality of your results. And in business and life, everything is results. Results are the most important single word. Is what results are expected of you? What results do you need to get in order to achieve the goals that you set for yourself? And the ability to be absolutely crystal clear about the results that are necessary is the mark of the leader. Peter Drucker said that the first question of the leader is always, what results are expected of me? What results are expected of me to fulfill my responsibilities, to fulfill my commitments? And it's absolutely amazing. If you ask this question, you'll find that 80% of your time at work is spent on doing things that have nothing to do with results. They're just busy things. They're conversations and reading the paper and making phone calls and going for lunch and so on. And if you're really strict with yourself, you'll find that much of what we do contributes nothing to the results that are most important to our success. And successful people are those who are very disciplined. Is this the very best use of my time? Now, the reason that thinking is so important, aside from the results, is because of the word consequences. I began studying time management and designing programs and books, and I'm now one of probably the top time management author in the world in books in 42 languages. And what I found when I was studying time management is this concept of consequences, which was one of those life-changing concepts. What it said was that something is important to the degree to which it has big potential consequences. Something is unimportant to the degree to which it has low or no consequences. And what is the difference between top people and average people? Top people do more and more things that have big potential consequences. Not guaranteed consequences, but potential consequences. Average people spend most of their time doing things that have low or no consequences at all. In other words, if they did them all day long, it wouldn't make any difference. But top people realize there's 2 or 3 things they can do: learning a critical skill, making a critical decision, taking an important action. There's certain things they can do that have enormous potential consequences. I have had experiences where meeting one person at the right time in my career has led to millions of dollars of revenue. And the consequences, I look back and I say, if I had not taken those steps and been assertive and aggressive and traveled and done all those things to establish that relationship, the difference would have been phenomenal. So it's a great question for you to ask. What are the consequences of what you're doing? And of all things, thinking has the greatest consequences. The quality of your thinking has the greatest consequences of all. Now, there's a good deal of work on thinking. We could spend all day on it. But basically, there's 2 dimensions of thinking. One is a Nobel Prize-winning research on the difference between fast thinking and slow thinking. Daniel Kahneman has written a book on this subject. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow. And it's a real slap in the face. I mean, whack, you really open your eyes. Basically, he says there's 2 types of thinking. Fast thinking is intuitive, it's instinctive, it's automatic. Driving through traffic is a perfect example. You're thinking quickly, you're changing traffic and so on, changing lanes and so on. And conversation, almost everything we do is fast thinking, and there's a place for that, for things that are just normal and routine. He said there's another type of thinking, though, and he is cited hundreds of times a year in scientific journals all over the world with this one concept. It's called slow thinking. And slow thinking is where you slow down and take time to think carefully before you commit time and resources and money, before you take an action. And many people make the mistake of mixing the two. So they're actually doing things with fast thinking, quick decisions, when they should be saying, wait a minute, time out, stop, let me think about this. I remember working with a man. He was a great mentor of mine. Started with nothing. He was worth $800 million when I worked with him, and he owned 200 companies. And this guy was brilliant. He could read a contract, and he could read a contract from the back. He could read a contract from the back, and 6 months later, quote it back to me. He had a photographic memory. Never seen that before. This guy was a genius. Everybody who knew him considered him to be one of the smartest business people in the world, at least if not in the country. And whenever I talked about anything serious with him, investments, businesses, developments, and so on, he would always say, let me think about that for a while. So we started talking on a Wednesday or Thursday, Friday. He said, let me think about it for a while. And what I learned later, as I watched really successful people, is that they realized that some things required slow thinking. And Drucker talks about this. He talks about the important things you do, like selecting a new employee, going into a business, developing a partnership, taking on a major client. These require slow thinking. And fast thinking in these areas can almost invariably lead to failure and tremendous losses. So what these top business people would do is when it was a big decision that had big potential consequences, they would slow down. And the way that they would slow down is they would just put time between the information and the decision. And what we find, there's lots of research on this, is the more time you put between getting the initial information and making the final decision, the better your decision will be. So the rule is, if it is not necessary to decide, it is necessary not to decide. And it's a very simple concept that will dramatically increase the quality of your decisions and your long-term potential results. Which brings us to the other type of thinking, which is very close. It's short-term versus long-term thinking. Short-term thinking is where you make decisions quickly without doing a lot of thought or research. Long-term thinking is where you think 5 or 10 years into the future when you make your decisions today. That's like, for example, if we say, this is what our company will look like in 5 years. Beautiful company. And then you come back to the present and you say, what do we have to do starting today to create this wonderful company? And then every single thing that you do, you say, is this consistent with the company we want to build? If we want to have a company with a great reputation for quality, would we release this particular product or service, which may not be that good? So if you have a long-term view of your future, it dramatically improves the quality of your short-term decisions. Dr. Edward Banfield at Harvard spent 50 years on this. He found the mark of upward social mobility, especially in business, financial success, was long-term thinking. The people who moved up the fastest in the income scale in every society were the ones who thought long-term when they engaged in their daily behaviors and made their daily decisions. And every great researcher, thinker, strategist that I've studied in the last 25 years has come to the same conclusion. So this is just a very important thing. Whenever you are faced with a big decision that has big potential consequences, just say, let me think about that for a while. And the ideal time is 72 hours. 72 hours just seems to be the perfect time to turn an idea over before you make a decision. If it's not necessary to decide, it's necessary not to decide. Say, let me think about that over the weekend, and I'll get back to you next week. And when you do that, you will be astonished at how much better a thinker you are, how much better decisions you make, and how much more successful you are. So these are the critical things about thinking. Which brings us to another question. And the question is, what is your most valuable financial asset? Well, knowledge, that's all true, but the answer is your earning ability. It's your ability to earn money is your most valuable financial asset. Unless you're born rich or you're born into a situation where you have lots of money, most of us start off with usually nothing. Many of us start off poor. We come from limited backgrounds. That's the nature of the successful business person. Is they say that in adult life, we are driven most in adult life to compensate for the lack that we felt as children. Whatever lack that we felt or deficiency we felt as children, we're unconsciously motivated to compensate for that as adults. So many of the most successful business people came from humble backgrounds. Not all of them, but most of them. Most of the fortunes, the millionaires and billionaires today, are first generation. They started with nothing. And then, because they had this internal drive, they got smarter and more experienced, and they had talents and skills, and today they're wealthy. So your earning ability is your most valuable financial asset. Economists are now calling this your earning power. So if you earn $50,000 a year, your earning power is $50,000 a year. It's usually 90% or more of your financial assets. If you have a house or a car or some savings, then that's part of your financial assets. But basically, most of what we have is our earning ability. So you could lose your job and lose your house and your car and your business, which happens all the time. But if you could be left standing there with the ability to earn money, you could go back into the marketplace and start to pump tens of thousands or dollars or more into your life by simply applying your earning ability to your world. And most people ignore their earning ability. It's almost like walking past a brick or a bag on the sidewalk. They just walk past it and they say, oh, they don't realize this is the most precious thing you have. And your earning ability is either increasing or decreasing. Your earning ability does not remain the same. It's either going up because you're upgrading your skills continually, or it's going down because your skills are becoming obsolete in a fast-changing world.